he had built his empire with discipline, precision, and a heart as guarded as his safe. Millionaire Jonathan Halle wasn't just wealthy, he was calculated. A man who trusted contracts more than people, lawyers more than love. Every inch of his estate in Greenwich, Connecticut reflected that: manicured lawns, mirrored hallways, motion detectors, and a safe hidden behind a Picasso, but there was one person who'd walked those halls freely for 7 years, his maid, Grace, a black woman in her late 50s with quiet dignity in her eyes and calluses on her hands. She never pried, never lingered. She moved like a shadow, always early, always humble. She cooked for him when he forgot to eat, ironed his shirts while humming gospel hymns, watered his plants even though he didn't notice if they lived or died, but wealth comes with suspicion and doubt. Doubt spreads like wildfire in ivory mansions. It started at a wine tasting, just a whisper from a guest, someone he barely knew. "You really trust her around all that?" Another said, swirling his glass, glancing at Grace as she poured coffee in the corner. "Money does strange things. To people, even the loyal ones." He didn't answer. But that night, Jonathan found himself staring at his safe, full of cash, heirloom gold bars, and a watch worth more than most people's homes, a diamond-encrusted Patek Philippe passed down from his grandfather. He thought about Grace's quiet footsteps, her simple shoes, her worn-out coat hanging in the back hall. He didn't want to believe the whispers, but he had to know. The next morning, he left the safe open, deliberately, the heavy door wide. Lights on, contents gleaming in full view. It was no accident. It was a trap. He staged the rest too, leaving early for a fake meeting, packing his Tesla out of view, sneaking back in through the garage, and watching everything on the hidden camera feed from his study, and then he waited. Grace arrived at 8:02 a.m., right on time. She wore that same gray sweater, slightly faded, and a smile that barely touched her lips. She hung her coat, picked up the vacuum, and began her routine. Slowly, she made her way through the hallway. And then she saw it. The safe, open, full, exposed. Jonathan leaned closer to the monitor, his breath shallow. She paused, stared for a moment, then stepped inside the room. Her hands trembled, he noticed, just slightly. She reached out and turned off the lights inside the vault. Then, to his surprise, she closed the door. Not just closed, it was the way she did it. With reverence, with care. As though she were guarding something sacred. She stood still for a moment, then whispered something. The mics couldn't catch it. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked away. No pocketing, no hesitation. No second glance. He watched her move on like nothing happened. She vacuumed the carpet, changed the sheets, sprayed lavender on the pillowcases like she always did. At one point she paused in front of a family photo, Jonathan and his brother from 15 years ago. She stared at it for a few seconds, as if remembering a story she was never told. Then she moved on. Later that afternoon, when he finally revealed himself, she was in the kitchen, humming while peeling apples. He stood there, arms crossed, unsure how to speak. "I left the safe open," he said finally. She didn't turn. "I saw, you didn't take anything." This time she turned. "I've cleaned that safe more times than I can count, Mr. Halle. I've dusted around it, mopped beneath it. If I wanted something from it, I wouldn't have waited 7 years. He felt his throat tighten. "Why didn't you say anything?" She looked him straight in the eye, strong, unwavering. "Because I knew what it was, a test. You left bait, hoping I'd prove the worst version of myself." "I had to be sure," he admitted quietly. Grace's hands went still. "Of what?" "That you were who I thought you were." She nodded slowly. "And am I?" He couldn't answer right away. But something shifted in his chest. Shame, respect, a mix of both. "You are," he said, "and more." That evening, he went into town and returned with something in a velvet box. It wasn't jewelry, it wasn't money. It was a key, to her own car. A fully paid-for electric SUV, and beside it, A folder papers that transferred ownership of a small cottage on the edge of his property. Not charity, not guilt. A gift, a thank you. And something more, an apology without saying the word, asterisk, when she saw it, she didn't cry. Grace wasn't a woman who wasted tears. She simply said, "Took you long enough." Asterisk, from that day on, she never entered through the servant's door again. She used the front like family. And when guests came over, Jonathan introduced her not as his maid, but as Grace, just Grace, asterisk, she never spoke of the safe again. But he did. Asterisk, years later, during a speech at a business gala, he told the story to a room full of powerful men. Not as a cautionary tale about theft, but about trust, about dignity, about the quiet strength of people you overlook until tested, asterisk, and every time he told it, he ended the same way, asterisk, I set a trap for someone I thought I trusted. But the truth is, she trusted me more. Even when I didn't deserve it. And in that room of suits and applause, not a single soul missed the weight of those words. Because sometimes it's not what people do when you're watching, but what they don't do when you aren't, asterisk, that's where character lives, and Grace. She had more of it than anyone he'd ever met.